I think more shock and dauntingness was more of the feeling I felt. But it was, the thing is, I think I was on such a high anyway, and so was Catherine, about George, that...
It was intended to be a calm spring day, a royal charity event at Princess Charlotte's school, complete with smiling parents, shining shoes, and well-planned picture opportunities. The year's most dramatic royal controversy included children, rather than politicians or paparazzi. More precisely, a child of the future Queen of England and a grandchild of Queen Camilla. Reports began to circulate. A conflict. Charlotte was weeping. A name, Camilla's granddaughter, was whispered in all the wrong circles. For weeks, the palace stayed mute, dismissing it as childish pranks. But the murmurs intensified, and the tabloids pounced. What appeared to be an isolated playground incident quickly escalated into a full-fledged royal crisis. What the public didn't realize, at first, was that Charlotte had been subjected to whispers, snubs, and backhanded remarks during Camilla's extended family parties on several occasions. But this would be the last. Prince William, who has always been extremely protective of his daughter, felt he had had enough, and for the first time in recent memory, he wielded authority that few knew he possessed. In a move that stunned insiders and delighted royal traditionalists, William formally revoked Camilla's granddaughter's royal title privileges, citing disrespectful behavior toward a direct heir to the crown. For many, it marked a long overdue line in the sand, one that prioritized Charlotte and the monarchy's future over Camilla's efforts to elevate her own bloodline. Behind the royal walls, rage exploded. Camilla, who was already disliked in many circles, was said to be beside herself with rage. She expected Charles to interfere. He did not. Instead, Princess Anne, ever the conventional, allegedly supported William without hesitation. And Kate? She stayed mute. However, the look in her eyes the following time she went out with Charlotte told everyone all they needed to know. This wasn't just a squabble between kids. It was a struggle for heritage, privilege, and power. Diana's blood flowed through the veins on one side. The other had just lately been permitted near the throne, and William had made his decision, not only as a parent, but as the future king. So, how did a playground incident become a constitutional issue? And why has the public focused its attention once more on Camilla's role in the royal family? The answers lie in what truly transpired inside the royal walls, and how one tiny act of brutality revealed a far larger reality. It began with murmurs in the school hallway, the type that most royal aides hoped never leave the building. But this time, they did. And once the truth came out, there was no turning back. Princess Charlotte had been invited to a combined educational event at her school, a day dedicated to promoting solidarity among families of power, heritage, and luxury. Among the many visitors was Camilla's eldest grandchild, whose presence drew unwanted attention. While Camilla's grandkids do not have formal royal titles, many people forget they are frequent visitors to royal-themed areas, thanks to Camilla's insistence on including her family in chosen events. They have discreetly attended birthdays, jubilee parades, and even private Windsor gatherings in recent years. It was all part of Camilla's lengthy strategy to gently legitimize her side of the family, even if it meant putting them in places they weren't supposed to be. However, nothing could have prepared the palace for what occurred that day. Several individuals within the school, including a staff member who subsequently spoke anonymously, said Charlotte was obviously distraught during a group exercise. At first, teachers assumed she was simply overwhelmed, but it rapidly became evident that something far more terrible was going on. Charlotte, who is generally poised and warm in public, had fled away in tears. Her tiny group had become quiet. It wasn't long before rumors escalated to concern. Nasty nicknames were purportedly used. A water bottle was accidentally tipped over upon her notebook. A particularly cruel remark was overheard. "You're only a princess because your grandma died." Who is the suspected perpetrator? Camilla's granddaughter. Teachers intervened quickly, attempting to calm the situation and prevent it from escalating. Charlotte was led to a quiet room, where she was consoled by personnel. No physical injury had occurred, but the emotional impact was evident. Kate, who arrived later that day, allegedly stayed calm but forceful. She gently thanked the personnel, retrieved Charlotte, and exited via a side entrance. However, within hours, the event had reached Kensington Palace and, more significantly, Prince William. According to sources, William was outraged. He asked to watch the incident film, which was captured by school cameras for security purposes. Although no audio was present, the film supposedly verified Charlotte's anguish and separation from the group. William immediately phoned the headmaster, requesting a thorough report. The school attempted to keep it quiet, publishing a vague internal letter on sensitivity and kindness in shared spaces. However, it was too late. A parent who observed the incident revealed the tale to the tabloids, stating that the future queen was publicly humiliated by a girl who thinks she's untouchable. The headlines erupted. Bullied. Princess Charlotte in tears after royal school showdown. Another read, Camilla's granddaughter under fire after taunting incident. Social media erupted with indignation. Hashtags such as #ProtectCharlotte and #RoyalEntitlement was popular on X and Instagram. In a particularly nasty twist, vintage images of Camilla's youngsters at previous royal functions were unearthed, with captions now oozing with sarcasm. So this is the next generation Camilla wants inside the monarchy? The palace first declined to respond. But behind closed doors, battle lines were set. For William, this was more than simply a minor disagreement. It represented something deeper, a rising attitude of entitlement on Camilla's side of the family, as well as a disregard for the monarchy's future. For the public, it reopened an old question. Why were Camilla's grandkids treated like royalty in the first place? What had begun as a school function to promote togetherness had instead revealed a crack in the royal foundation, putting lineage, history, and devotion to the test in the most unexpected way. And Prince William was prepared to act. Because if Charlotte shed a single tear because of someone under the crown's protection, that protection would be lost. To fully comprehend the consequences of the bullying controversy, one must analyze Camilla's grandchildren's stealthy rise, and how their rising presence inside royal circles became a source of contention even before the incident occurred. Camilla has 5 grandkids between her 2 children, Laura Lopes and Tom Parker Bowles. While none of them hold royal titles or are in the line of succession, they have been invited to high-profile events that were formerly reserved for the monarchy's lineage. From balcony appearances at Jubilee celebrations to official invites to Windsor family events, Camilla worked tirelessly to ensure that her grandkids had the look of royalty without the obligations that entailed. Among them, her eldest granddaughter received the greatest attention. She rapidly became Camilla's favorite, known in aristocratic circles for her polished beauty and social poise, and she supposedly intended to one day be regarded as a future royal figure in her own right. Insiders claim Camilla made many behind-the-scenes attempts to improve the status of her grandkids. While she could not declare them official royals, she lobbied for special treatment, including courteous protection, unique educational arrangements, and informal attire that blurred the distinction between royal and commoner. At family gatherings, she frequently referred to them as the young royals, a remark that reportedly caused Princess Anne to bristle, and Kate quietly withdrew Charlotte from group playdates. The notion that these students were being granted advantages they did not deserve exacerbated the problem. Whereas William and Kate's children were brought under intense public scrutiny and taught the qualities of caution, responsibility, and etiquette, Camilla's grandkids were viewed by insiders as relying on connections, protected from public scrutiny, yet keen to reap royal benefits. So when it was revealed that one of them, Camilla's cherished granddaughter, was at the center of a bullying controversy aimed against Princess Charlotte, it did more than simply stoke public outrage. It reinforced long-standing concerns. Critics reacted on social media. Camilla pushed herself into the royal family. Is she now pushing her grandchildren on us as well? This is what happens when you treat non-royals like they're born to the crown. According to palace sources who spoke on the condition of anonymity, Camilla's initial attitude to the incident was chilly and dismissive. She allegedly informed Charles, "They are children. It's simply a joke." But the older members of the household were not convinced. They'd heard far too many tales over the years about Camilla's granddaughter's attitude, her inclination to assert dominance in social settings, and her casual references to her royal connection. And while Camilla tried to downplay the situation, the harm had already occurred. Royal observers began raising difficult questions. Why do Camilla's youngsters have access to royal schools and events? Why are they regarded as part of the royal inner circle, although they have no titles or family links to the monarchy? Behind closed doors, even Charles felt the pressure. The optics were bad. The future queen's daughter was bullied by a non-royal girl? It was intolerable. This was more than simply one youngster being cruel. It was about allowing a whole generation to work in royal places without realizing the significance of what those areas represented. And William had no intention of allowing it to continue. For Prince William, the boundary had been crossed several times. He has long tolerated Camilla's efforts to gradually include her grandkids into the royal family. He had remained mute during balcony appearances, disregarded Camilla's passive remarks at family gatherings, and even consented to their participation in royal school events. However, this occurrence, the attack on Charlotte, was unique. It wasn't simply lousy conduct, it was disrespectful to the crown's future. Inside Kensington Palace, insiders said the mood became icy and purposeful. William was not in his typical calm state. One characterized his manner as controlled fury. After studying the headmaster's whole report, William convened a secret conference with only his closest circle present: Kate, an education advisor, and a senior royal protocol officer. The decision was unanimous. Camilla's granddaughter's actions, combined with Camilla's nonchalant dismissal, rendered ongoing participation hard to defend. Charles was the next person to be informed. The interaction between father and son appeared to be strained. Charles encouraged patience and temperance. "Don't escalate this, William," he added, perhaps more worried with the optics than the emotional toll it had taken on Charlotte. But William was no longer interested in optics. His daughter had been publicly humiliated by a youngster who had been granted privileges without following process, and the family had remained silent long enough. "Not while I'm alive," William allegedly told an advisor later that night. "This family doesn't bend to appease titles that don't exist." What ensued was unprecedented. William cited a seldom-used royal prerogative provision that permits the sovereign's heir to amend or withdraw honorary and courteous rights provided within the monarch's extended household, particularly where the conduct reflects negatively on the crown or its direct line. By the morning, an internal document had circulated throughout Buckingham Palace. Miss Name Redacted's courtesy rights, which included participation at official royal school occasions, use of royal transportation, and casual styling, have been terminated, effective immediately. This decision was taken in light of recent conduct unworthy of someone linked with the royal household, as well as to protect the dignity of the crown's direct line of succession. It caused shockwaves across the royal staff. This type of measure had never been taken against a member of the Queen Consort's family. However, William saw it as a corrective rather than a punishment. A gentle reminder that heredity is important, that proximity to authority is not the same as power, and that Charlotte's status as a future queen would not be lessened by having been born outside the monarchy. Kate allegedly made the choice without hesitation. She had long been uneasy about Camilla's attempts to integrate her family into royal tradition, but had kept quiet for the sake of diplomacy. There was no longer need for quiet. While Charles may have felt conflicted, Princess Anne, who is usually sharp-eyed and fiercely committed to tradition, promptly supported William. "We protect the monarchy by protecting the ones who will lead it," she remarked during a private session, emphasizing William's whole legacy. By the end of the week, Camilla's granddaughter had discreetly withdrawn from all forthcoming activities. Her name was removed from the pre-approved guest lists. A modest but significant change had happened in royal circles. William had established a boundary, and the monarchy would no longer pretend that everyone who passed through its halls was related. While headlines burst, palace aides rushed, and Camilla allegedly stormed behind closed doors, one individual said nothing at all, and yet said everything. Catherine, Princess of Wales, has not issued a statement. She did not disseminate information via royal insiders. She did not need to. Her quiet became the strongest response of all. Kate withdrew from public life in the aftermath of the controversy. Her scheduled presence at a parenting lecture has been discreetly canceled. A charity board meeting she was supposed to chair was postponed. Royal observers took note right away. Though Kensington Royal provided no official reason, gossip was widespread, with many speculating Kate preferred to be close to Charlotte as tensions simmered behind royal gates. However, only 5 days after William's decision to suspend Camilla's granddaughter's powers, Kate reappeared, this time accompanied by Princess Charlotte. The two attended a high-profile event at a children's anti-bullying charity, which Kate had previously supported but hadn't mentioned publicly in over a year. The timing could not have been more purposeful. Photographers captured the moment they went onto the event carpet, which would become the picture that defined the scandal's aftermath. Charlotte, dressed in a pale blue frock and carrying a sunflower, the symbol of perseverance, stood proudly by her mother. Kate, as elegant as ever, wore a sympathetic face and softly placed her hand on Charlotte's back as they were led inside. They did not take questions. They did not recognize the reporters, but the word had already arrived. This family will not disintegrate. It rises. Within hours, the photo had gone viral. The headlines hailed Kate's calm strength. Social media erupted with support. This is what real royalty looks like. Grace under pressure. No tantrums, no statements, just dignity. But the photograph wasn't the only message Kate sent. According to a senior royal advisor, Kate talked privately with Charlotte's school's headmistress in the days following the event. Her tone was gentle, yet forceful. She made it plain that she anticipated a safer, more respectful atmosphere moving ahead. Even though she never said a single name, her remarks were powerful. Only a week later, the school allegedly introduced new mental health procedures, stating an increased commitment to compassion and empathy. Behind the scenes, Kate also took a quiet but deliberate move. She started looking into alternative school choices for Charlotte, not as a retreat, but rather as a defensive measure, a means to remind the institution and maybe the larger royal circle that Charlotte's well-being will always take precedence over etiquette. Nonetheless, Kate declined to retaliate publicly. When queried about the incident by an event organizer, she just smiled and answered, "Children teach us more than we teach them, don't they?" It was a straightforward statement on the surface, but within the palace, it sounded like a thunderclap, because those closest to Kate understood exactly what she meant. Charlotte had been harmed, but she would recover, and in doing so, she would discover the strength of silent power, which her mother had honed for years, not through statements, not through drama, but with a calm demeanor that commands respect without demanding it. In a culture that frequently rewards speech, Kate Middleton had spoken a lot without saying anything. Camilla believed that quiet spoke louder than any censure. The minute the internal communication was revealed, Queen Camilla's rage allegedly burst within palace walls like a thunderclap. For years, she had moved skillfully, weaving her children and grandchildren into royal situations and pushing limits that others avoided. But now, with one final stroke, Prince William had undone everything. Camilla was furious. According to people close to Clarence's house, she went into a secret conference with King Charles and demanded that William's choice be reversed. "This is humiliating," she allegedly said. "He had no right to target my granddaughter like that." But it wasn't just about the title and benefits. Camilla took this personally. She had worked carefully to transform her public image, transitioning from mistress to queen consort. Much of her change had been based on presenting herself as a unifier, a loving grandmother, a dedicated wife, a lady whose family deserved to be beside the Windsors. William's move destroyed the illusion. It revealed a raw reality she had attempted to hide. No matter how near she came to the throne, she would never fully be a part of it. She expected Charles to jump in. After all, hadn't he told her that her family would be welcomed into the royal fold? Hadn't he already intimated that her descendants may one day hold official titles under a simplified monarchy? But suddenly, confronted with William's power, public fury, and Kate's silent resistance, Charles faltered. He allegedly told Camilla, "We can't ignore the optics, darling. Not now. Not with Charlotte involved." However, Camilla refused to accept it. She sought a family summit, and when that happened, another voice entered the room, one Camilla had long undervalued. Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, known for her frank honesty and uncompromising commitment to tradition, made her position clear. "This isn't about your granddaughter," she said to Camilla in a tone that left no room for argument. "This concerns the monarchy's future, and we will safeguard it at all costs." Anne, who had previously battled with Diana, had become extremely protective of William and his children in recent years. She recognized in Charlotte the same spark that she had seen in a young Queen Elizabeth, power wrapped in timidity, dignity sculpted by responsibility, and she was not going to allow Camilla's family to damage her heritage. According to sources, Anne's statements had a greater impact on the encounter than Charles. She reminded the audience that politeness privileges are not entitlements. They are earned through commitment, demeanor, and conduct. In this situation, they'd been mistreated. The ruling was affirmed, no title was re-established, no privileges were returned. Camilla's grandchild has officially left the royal orbit. Camilla skipped 2 public appearances in the days that followed, citing a previously scheduled private engagement. But behind palace doors, the truth was clear. She was furious. She apparently ceased speaking with Kate and stayed aloof from William. The already deep fracture had become too large to be repaired. However, there was no formal declaration from Buckingham Palace, no clarifications, no attempts to reverse the judgment. Why? Because the word had already been sent, not only to Camilla, but to the entire extended royal network. There is a clear distinction between closeness and power, between titles earned and borrowed, between the crown's blood and those who just come into contact with it. And Princess Anne, the monarchy's silent enforcer, had ensured that line was maintained. In the centuries-long history of the British monarchy, scandals come and go, but moments of clarity, the type that redefine how power is maintained and passed down, are considerably more uncommon. One of those defining moments occurred during the calm storm that followed the incident involving Camilla's granddaughter and Princess Charlotte. This was never simply about a schoolyard snub. It was about the sort of monarchy that future generations would inherit. Would it be one tainted by favoritism and personal ambition, or one solidly based on heredity, dignity, and duty? In deciding to take rights from someone who was not born into the House of Windsor, William made it plain that the crown is not a playground for opportunists. While Camilla rages behind palace curtains and Charles continues to balance diplomacy and legacy, the real shift is taking place elsewhere, in Catherine's poised silence, Princess Anne's unwavering stance, and the protective fire of a father who understands that one day, the weight of a nation will rest on his daughter's shoulders. The public notices it. The masses have picked a side. Support for William and Kate continues to rise, while criticism of Camilla and Charles gets colder by the week. The monarchy is being reinvented, not by decrees, but through acts. This bold and unabashed conduct has set the tone for what is to come. Camilla's lengthy attempt to integrate her family into the royal lineage has hit an impenetrable wall. The message is plain. If you cross the boundary, you will lose the privilege. If you injure the future, you will sacrifice the present, because in the new period of the royal family, titles are obtained through respect rather than convenience. Charlotte, the future queen, now walks taller, certain that her father will defend the crown she was meant to wear.